Good evening.
Need to.
Oh, sorry. I need Stephen's gavel. Welcome to the planning, properties and speeding for 21st of February. And the first item on the agenda is the apologies and reasons given.
Apologies from councillors Peter Sparks and Peter Howden, acceptable reasons. And councillor Evelyn Penny is absent with no apologies.
Thank you, Jan. Okay, we can move on to the... Sorry. If I can move on to the declarations of interest, to receive any declarations of interest in accordance with the requirements of the Localism Act 2011 and to consider any requests for dispensation in respect of pecuniary and non-pecuniary interest in any agenda items. Nobody? Thank you very much. Minutes of the previous meeting, to resolve to agree the notes of minutes of the 25th of January on 2022 as minutes. Everybody read and is happy with?
Yeah, all prepared.
I'll second.
I'll sign.
Agreed.
Everybody agreed?
Initial there, please.
Just there.
Here. Sign
I'm good, I'm not standing on my head to do that one.
Oops, I'll change that. 22.
Thank you. Okay, stand on my head to do the big paper one. Okay, the planning applications. Has everybody looked at all of the planning applications that have been sent out?
Yeah.
Everybody happy so far?
Yeah.
I don't think there was any that were contentious issue.
No.
No.
I think there's one that we move on to a little bit further down, that was the whole beach. Have we got that on the agenda?
I think there's been an update to the beacon at Olsham Marks, but
It's just a movement,
Yeah.
isn't it?
I don't think there's anything to object to at all.
Excellent, thank you very much.
So that's all, no objection and
No objection.
support to the 14722, yes?
Yeah. Okay. Proposer and a second, please. Mark proposed. Isabel, this could get
Interesting.
Just taking it turns.
Yeah. Agreed?
everybody agreed?
Yeah.
Speeding. Now we have Peter unfortunately isn't with us tonight, but I think he sent a report, hasn't he, Jan,
He
Stone?
has, and so he sent the report which is in the drive. The location for the device this month is Roman Bank, 75 yards from junction with Middlemarsh Road at the entrance to the allotments on the trail
Well,
facing Holby Churn, and Station Road on the lamp column outside the Mitsubishi garage.
lovely.
That's actually Fen Road, not
I was going to say that's Fen Road, isn't it? It's outside the...
A little bit further down.
We had delivery of the second seed.
No, because we paid for it last week, so I haven't heard anything. I will chase.
Can we have a proposal and a second for the speeding? Mark's proposing, Isabel's seconding. Anybody agreed?
Just on the speeding side, are we posting the speeding information
That's what I
on
was
the
going to say.
Facebook page?
We were going to
Is that what that
do
is? Yeah.
that, weren't we?
So I say because it was included in the report, wasn't it? So
Yeah.
yeah.
So has,
It's quite a considerable document. I'll have a look at the report and then I'll see what I can do with
Yeah.
posting.
yeah, thank you.
I think it would be, the main points would need to be that where it's going to be, because that's obviously going to hopefully make people slow down a little bit more as well. If we can say it's going to be in these positions for this month.
I think it was quite interesting as well, on that report you can actually see how many cars went at such and such a speed, and that would be really interesting for people to see just what speeds are going on down there. Okay, so we did that one, didn't we? So, number 87, properties. 87A is to resolve to agree to advertise and rent room number 4 at Coobrough. Over to Isabel for this one.
Obviously, room number 4 has been vacated and she's now moved into room number 5. There's 1 or 2 people that have approached us already interested in the room, but they haven't come back with any offers as to what they're wanting to pay for it, etc. So that's not really going anywhere at the moment. One of them would be a very good use of the room, and I would like to see that happen if at all possible, but they haven't come back with any concrete interest in it yet. So
Can
We
we
do
get back
need
to
to-
them?
I have done last week, and I was awake. I was hoping they were going to come back before tonight, but they haven't done.
Right.
So I can chase again,
Could we
but
chase-
if not, then we are going to have to look at
Yeah.
advertising it.
If we say that to them.
Yeah, well, I did in
Yeah.
last week. I said we need to know what we're doing because we have got to look at what we can do with the room. So I will endeavour to get an answer before full council.
Lovely, thank you, Isabel.
Propose, because you're going to advertise it.
Yeah, I propose that if we don't get anywhere, then we need to propose that we
That we
advertise
would
it.
propose to advertise it, right.
Agree?
To discuss and resolve to agree the use of the car park at the rear of Coobrough Chambers. This one is...
Yeah, it's a bit more complicated.
Yes.
One of the tenants has got use of parking spaces,
Right.
and obviously our staff have use of parking spaces, but none of the other tenants actually have a use of a parking space within their lease.
Right.
It's done on a first come, first served basis. If there's a parking space available, then they can use it, but they don't have any actual right to it. It should not be a problem, because if everybody parks sensibly, then we can get quite a lot of cars on the car park. The problem is that if you get one person that parks towards the edge of the car park, then the space in front of them is then useless. So, I would like to say that I think we ought to write to all of the tenants and stipulate that if they are going to use the car park, they need to go in order, so that if they have to ask people to move, if they need to leave, then they're going to have to ask people to
Yeah.
move, because it's just wasting space. So say if any of us came and we needed to visit the office, there may be a space at front, but we can't get to it.
Yeah.
So that would be the first thing. And the other thing would be, I have been approached by somebody that has a business close by, and they are obviously having difficulty because they have nowhere to park, and they wondered whether there would be any opportunity to use our car park whilst they were at work. And I said, well, I can only ask, I can't say yes or no. If there is something that we want to consider, then I would suggest if we do allow them to park, then it's going to have to be on a paid basis, that they pay for the space. But that's down to us to decide whether we want to do that or whether we want to keep it all for ourselves. And
But it's a tricky one because we're going to have, so we'll have the clerk, the assistant clerk.
Yeah.
We would have one space for at least one councillor per day.
Yeah.
How many offices have we got? So there's the deanery.
Yeah, you would have 3 tenants once all of the rooms are taken, plus upstairs, and obviously they already have their parking spaces
Yeah.
within their lease.
But that's noted on the car park as well as
It is.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So you would have enough space for all tenants and staff if they all park sensibly. You can get 5 cars in that area, because you can get, if you park
Yeah.
in a row, you can get 3 in a 2 easily. But that would not leave you any space if a councillor visited. So it's a matter of whether you want what you want to do. I mean, ideally, it would be great if we could map it out in a proper manner so that people could see exactly where the parking spaces were, and hopefully they'd use it more sensibly, but that's not going to happen.
Not for a long while.
No.
Because that's talking about time.
Yeah, exactly.
Back to the old age-old problem of parking in Holbeach, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's very difficult, and obviously now that we've got the traffic warden about, it is more of a problem when he's here. But the restrictions out the back here are due to be changing soon.
Yeah.
When that's going to happen, I don't know, but that would mean that there'd be longer parking out the back. So then
at the minute it's an hour.
it's
Isn't it?
only an hour, yeah, but they're obviously aiming to change that so it allows residents to be able to park outside the houses. But when that's going to happen, I don't know.
Is it something we could approach South London District Council for? I don't know whether they're the right people to speak to in relation to a permanent parking system for
Tried that.
people who've already tried out.
I've tried that at the other end of town,
Yeah.
Okay.
Somewhere.
and I got
Yeah.
short shrift.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is a very tricky one. Yeah.
I mean, where would we stand insurance-wise as well if we had somebody else's car?
Yeah, that is another thing to
Would
consider.
be an issue that would need to be solved, because if somebody else's car then got scratched as somebody walked past it.
Yeah.
Especially if there was the last one on the row of concern, would have to go to that business
Yeah.
to get them to come and move.
Yeah.
You know.
I think with where we are with our own staff and tenants, I think if we keep it to ourselves at this stage and just see how it goes.
I think the insurance alone scares me slightly. It is a very litigious society at the moment, and if anything did happen, we would be in trouble. And if we were charging to park, then that would then make it our fault.
Is it worth the nature of where the car park is? Because you're saying people tend to, if they park too far in the middle, that blocks 2 spaces. Is it worth, because it would be for a relatively small cost, just putting a line of bricks
that is
level with the surface?
Yeah.
So literally you're cordoning it off into 2 areas? Because we could do that relatively low value.
That may be something to look at
It
within
certainly
the
might be
budgeting
one,
for
yeah.
next year, because we'd have to work out as and whether it is worth doing it. If we can get tenants and everybody to park sensibly, because obviously people have a routine, don't they?
Yeah.
And it's about just trying to tweak it just slightly so it allows more people to get onto the car park at any one time. So it would be a matter of just approaching them individually and just saying, can you please, regardless of whether you think you're going to need to leave early, you must park as far in as possible when you're on.
I was just thinking, would it be an idea to maybe remove that small bit of fence between the car park and the band hall? Would that extend the car park a little bit?
Wouldn't extend it
It
a
wouldn't
lot,
extend
but
it
it would
much,
save
just-
an issue, because again, damage when you open the door, if you hit,
Yeah.
if you're parking very
I think the
tight,
other
which
thing
you
as
are
well
going
is
to
the
have
holly.
to.
The holly
Yeah,
is
it's
an
trimming
issue.
It does, yeah.
So I've given myself some nasty scratches
Yeah.
on that.
I think there's a few things that we can do. So yes, the fence is pretty much have it anyhow.
Yeah.
So if that's removed, the holly's trimmed down so that it gives you just that little bit more space for people walking through initially. speak to the tenants and make sure that regardless of what order they come in, they park at the furthest point and then you stack back.
Yeah.
So
It is
the first
annoying
one in
for
gets,
us, but that's
I know, but
that's
they,
just the way it
it's
is.
not like they're not going to leave the office and go off wandering somewhere. They are going to be in the office,
Yeah.
so therefore there is no reason why they can't do a bit of shoveling around if somebody needs to leave.
And they are quite lucky to have a car parking space at all.
Well, actually, they don't have the right for it.
Yeah.
So therefore, they're going to have to be a little bit more considerate with the way they're parking.
So we look at removing the fence.
Yeah.
We'll sort the whole layout. Maybe Colin would look at the holly. I suspect Colin will probably be able to do the fence as well.
Yeah, it'll come down as easy as
Yeah.
anything.
Give us that little bit of extra space, and then we'll talk about sectioning it off. I mean, we could even just spray paint for a start, just to make sure that it's a tin of the,
Yeah,
Chalk line.
we have got that.
yeah, just to give us a
Just
clue.
to indicate what spaces we've actually got, and even if you sprayed out a space for a parking space so that it's very clear to them when they arrive, you park here, you park here, you park here. Because again, if you park slightly further over, then that then impacts on the other side, and then they can't get their vehicles in. So
And if you do it with the spray paint, at least you'll see if it works before actually
Before
playing
doing
out.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay,
So, do I have a proposer for that, please? Thank you. Second.
and I still agree.
Are we going to look to put that towards open spaces to get it on the job schedule?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think if that can go on the work schedule so that Colin can...
yeah, can organise that.
To resolve to agree to obtain an EPC for Coombe Chambers.
Yeah, again, it's something that has been pending for a while. We were hoping to have had the windows changed before we did it, because obviously that will impact,
Yeah.
but that's not likely to happen anytime soon. We need to get it done, because there is a requirement for us to do it, because we're renting the rooms. So again, we need to go out to people to do it, and it has to be commercial, so you can't just use the normal standard people, and it's always more expensive. So
There is nobody local, is there?
there is a name that I know of that I'll pass your way, and I know that Stephen has got contacts that he's given to us for another issue.
Lovely.
So he's got, but they're not as local, but they may be cheaper, so.
So can I have a proposer to, and a seconder, thank you. I agree. To receive an update on the property valuation promises.
Did you all see,
Where?
Seeing the list of the properties,
Yeah.
did you see the spreadsheet where for all the companies I contacted?
Yes.
They haven't had anything back from anyone yet, so.
So it is just a waiting game to push that on to next times.
Yeah, but we need to chase them, because we
Yeah.
do, it's crucial, we need it for insurance purposes,
Yeah.
we have to have it done.
I'll chase
So,
them.
and it will be a
this week.
long process for them to do it. You're going to be waiting at least 8 weeks before you get a report from them. So it's not going to be a quick one.
Right.
Yeah, I'll chase them
Can-
this week.
Can that be any estate agency?
No, again, it has to be somebody that does. Not all of them do it. They charge a fee to do it, because obviously they're not gaining anything out of it themselves. And there are only set ones locally that do it, certainly if it's commercial buildings. There is one more that I can add to your list if you want.
So that was just an update, so I don't have to.
Oh.
Number 88, to discuss and resolve to agree the review of the following policies. The planning policy. Has everybody had a good look at the planning policy?
Yes.
There were some bits highlighted that we needed to look straight away at.
Yeah, on the first one, item number 2, it does need amending. It's not to the chair of planning, it will be to the clerk.
Yeah.
Change that.
On number 3, it is basically okay the way it is, apart from that we need to put something in there to say that all responses must be agreed by either the planning committee or full council before being.
Are we still doing that the chair of planning collates or the office collates?
No, that needs to be the office again because the office puts them through, doesn't it?
It's not how we've done it in the past, because there was a spreadsheet basically,
Right.
and as they came in, every councillor will have their input, and then it was the chair of planning that would collate a response based on those
Right.
responses, and then those responses are then agreed at either planning or full council, so say if you had, I don't know, only 4 people that have made any observation, if they're all no objection, then it's no objection. But if there's key things whereby you've got something, a key point that you want to make, you can't object unless the majority want to object, but you can put in a comment that is based around planning law, if that's...
Similar like to what we did in relation to everyone was in favour, but
Yeah.
please look at parking.
Yeah.
Exactly, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's a matter, I mean, it depends, I mean, obviously, if as chair of planning you need some help with it, then that's absolutely fine. But if it's left to the office to do it, then they're going to have to basically collate everything, then they're presenting it to our planning
Yeah.
meetings rather than us presenting it, if
That's
you see what I
fine.
mean.
I will come in one day, Jan, and go through it with you so that you can.
In relation to putting the responses onto the portal, is that
That will come from the office.
So that comes from the office.
Yeah.
So all of that bit's sorted.
Yeah, so once it's
Yeah.
been agreed at our meetings, either this
Yeah.
meeting or then
Then
the office,
will
because
enter
it always comes up when you look on the planning portal,
Mhm.
it is on behalf of parish council, it comes as the clerk
Yeah.
has responded, so it's got to do
Yeah.
that.
So feedback, that was all right. I don't think there was anything else that I picked out.
It's from 9 onwards about each ward, but I
Yeah.
wasn't.
I was going to say,
I think that was, yeah, that was done when naively there was the belief that district would actually take any notice of what we wanted out of 106 money. And that was basically, so like if there is a pot of money sitting there with 106
Yeah.
payments in it, and the idea was that we as a parish would collate projects that we wanted to put forward as to look for funding from the 106 money. So say if we wanted to do a major revamp of one of our open spaces, and because there's been lots of housing built in the town, we feel that having a contribution from them, it would be a sensible thing to do.
Yeah.
That was what that was put in there for. And again, what it's saying in there is it needs to be fully costed because you have to present that to district, but they hold the keys to it. We can't just ask for it and get it.
in relation to that, is that solely, for instance, parish council based? So we've had a big development that's gone through
Yeah.
that we should have 106 money coming in for
Yeah, which you have, yeah.
Okay, and in relation to NHS funding and things like that,
Yeah.
is that for us to then do in the locale, link with the local surgeries and say, what's their headroom? Do we then put that together and then put that to district, or is that not our part of our job to do?
It's, well, you can lobby,
Okay.
but ultimately the pot of money that is allocated to either health or to education goes into the pot of money for health or education, and then they decide, the board, that so it'll either be LCC under the education side, or it'll be the whatever the commissioning services within this area for the health. They make the final decision on how that money is spent, and many a time it's not actually spent within the Holbridge locality, but maybe it's spent on Boston Hospital or whatever, because we are feeding into that.
Yeah.
But there is no reason why we can't lobby those places and say, we believe that there is a need for X, Y, and Z, but ultimately we can't
No, I just
influence.
the way I read that when I went through the policy was that as for the infrastructure of the locality, we should have in each ward a plan of, if they're going to have a development, for instance, let's say they have a development down at Holbridge Grove,
Yeah.
then what's down there that we need to implement, and if they do that, what would we then need to put into place? And if we don't have a plan for each ward, then we're not going to be lobbying or shouting for the money, so therefore the money will go elsewhere anyway. So I just think, you know, if it's something that we should do and should have in place, whether we haven't already at the minute, then that's fine, but it's something I think we need to look at, so at least we're a step up the ladder to say, this is what we need. I mean, one of the big things locally from the developments is the fact of healthcare and schools, and if we can push anything behind that gets us another step up the ladder, I think then that's beneficial.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, they will argue that the money is there because they allocate it through the system. It's how that money is then spent. That's the bit
Yeah.
that we don't really get any influence on whatsoever. How much, I think it would be a very good thing to be able to work out where there is a need for certain things. Whether, I mean, it may be something, it may not be based around the things of education, health, or whatever. It may be something completely different that an area is crying out for, and if we could be a big enough voice to lobby for that to happen under the 106 agreements, then that would be a great thing. I suspect.
This intrigues me.
I suspect that you're not going to get very far unless you've got somebody on the inside at district level that's going to beat your drum for you.
But we're not
And
going to get very far
unfortunately,
if
we
we
haven't
don't
got
try, are
anybody.
we?
No, I just think, I think we said in like the PR and IT in relation to that, developing those relationships so we've got that voice there. And if we can do that, then obviously anything that we're going to get benefit, more coming into the 106 money will benefit the parishioners in the long run.
Yeah.
So I just think, I think if there's a plan, if there's a statement in there that we should have a plan of what infrastructure we need, I think some of the, maybe the planning meetings going forward, we have a discussion about what we feel is needed. We can even sort of put that out to the parishioners to find out what they feel is needed in the area.
I mean, one of the things that did happen because of lobbying was the Peppermint Junction, because obviously that had been going on for years and years and years, and it wasn't until you had the major building coming on stream that actually happened, and that sort of stemmed from the whole Holbridge town plan that was done many, many years ago, and that was already earmarked in that, and it's been lobbied for a very, very long time to be able to achieve that. So it can work,
But that
but
was,
on the small scale projects, it's unlikely that you're going to get anything, but on the big scale projects, yes, you're potentially going to get it, but you have got to have people behind you to make it happen.
So the other thing is we need the councillor for each ward then to be aware of what we're thinking to make sure that is, yes, Sophie.
Just want to say, I met with the person in the planning department who deals with the 106 money, must be a couple of years ago now when I first started. So I think
with your ambitions, it might be worth if you arrange a meeting with her, if she still deals with that, to go through what you're trying to achieve and what's the best way to do it. Because it may be that that is not the best way to do it, because she explained to me the whole system and how the money gets divvied up, etc. And the fact that generally parish councils don't get the direct benefit of the money. But if you're trying to generally lobby a bit more, then finding the best way to
it's
do
not
that.
actually about the parish council, it's about
The area.
the area. And we know that we need the infrastructure rebuilding.
Yeah.
Almost from the ground up.
Yeah, and that's the key thing. I mean, the system that they have with the 106 doesn't really work very well, because it can only go to certain things. If it were done on the community infrastructure levy, which we don't do around here because staff don't want to do that, then it's done in a more, it comes to the actual community that it's affecting, and it comes more directly. The way that they do it is they sort of hold the pots of money, and then when they're asked for a contribution towards education or whatever, then they give. And it's all a bit, we don't tend to see any direct benefit, not that we can see anyhow. There probably is benefit there, but from our point of view and from the parishioners' point of view, they don't see it.
Well, we need to be asking questions anyway then, don't we?
Yeah.
So we need to ask what is the,
So what?
whether is this money,
Well, they hold it mainly.
yeah,
Or they
but
pass it over
that's
to
the question that we
Yeah.
need to be asking.
Yeah.
So in relation, we've got point 20 on the policy saying that the planning response policy will be updated whenever the town plan changes.
Yeah.
The community infrastructure levy is adopted by the planning authority, South Holland District Council. If they don't currently do that,
Yeah.
what do they use in?
The 106.
Oh, so that is the.
That is their way of doing it.
Okay.
And it's a different setup.
Yeah.
A lot of local authorities do use the community infrastructure levy.
Yeah.
We don't.
Okay.
But am I right in saying they're going to change it anyhow?
You still need both. So community infrastructure levy can't do affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
106 system is you don't have to just do education, healthcare, etc.
Yeah.
But basically the only things they really fund through South Holland District Council is healthcare, education and open spaces. Generally with open spaces that means they provide open spaces within the development.
Yeah.
They don't tend to fund
No.
existing ones. But yeah, with the community infrastructure levy you have set charges that they agree rather than negotiating with the development.
Okay. And the open spaces that become available within that development, who do they then fall to? The parish council?
No.
Normally district.
Normally district.
So you're actually
So
ended
they're
up
district
charging
owned.
more money
Okay,
in the
right.
long run because district then have to maintain them.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things to think about, and again, I mean, when this was written, the purpose of the planning committee was to start looking at the town plan again, and because it was 2008 when that was first done. Well, the bones of it is there, and because certain things have happened, it's never moved on from that point. It was just parked, and that was it. And really what we need to be looking at is that plan as it stands. What has happened from it? Are there any big ideas still within that plan that haven't been delivered? Do we think anything needs to be changed now that the town is growing, etc., etc.? But the bones of it is there. And really, we're now, 14 years on?
Which is huge.
And we really need to start the whole process, not from scratch, but we need to review where we're at. And that can be done collaboratively. With,
Can be done together.
with other authorities. It's not just us that would get involved in that, it's your local groups, and it would also be your district councillors and your county councillors and everybody, and you would be feeding into it, and you would come up with your bigger plan, and you would then have this is what we are aiming to do in the next 10, 20, whatever years, and then that feeds into your whole discussions with your developers and your local authorities, and this is what we want out of it, and that's where you get your drive from.
Right. Could I suggest then, if we can, maybe is it worth arranging a meeting with local, sort of district, county, even the other parish councils that are adjoining to us, to start the ball rolling with that town plan? And have we got a copy of the town plan that can be
Yes.
disseminated round?
Yes.
Right, so I think the first...
It was in the planning folder.
It still is.
Yeah, it's in there.
Okay.
Right, so I think the first thing is for us to get a good look at the existing town plan that's there. All of us come back to the table, we'll put it on for the agenda for next time with our thoughts and where we think we need to move forward from here with that plan. Because it might be that we just say, well, actually, it's so out of date that, or it might be
a lot of it is out of date, but there are certain key elements from memory that are still current, really, that have been, you know, they've been sitting there, nothing's actually happened with them, and we've talked about them over and over and over again, but nothing's been delivered on it. So it may well, when you read it, you may well think, well, you know, this is actually, a lot of this is still current. There are one or two bits that are absolutely not current, and you can park them straight away and say, well, that's pie in the sky. I mean, there's one in there that you would probably say, well, that is just not ever going to happen, so let's just take it out there. You know, but it's worth a read, and it gives you an idea of what the vision was back in 2008. Well, we've moved on a lot.
I was going to say, I know personally from working at the local school, when I started there in 2009 and there was 909 students. I left there in 2016, I think it was, and there was just over 1,700 students. So in effect, that's doubled in size.
Yeah.
You know, and we've got another 1,100 houses coming in the locale since, you know, since that point. So it's, you know, it's going to have an impact. So the more voice I think we can personally have building into that town plan, the better.
I think if you could, if we bring it back to the next meeting and then start the process of talking with district about the system as it sits now, because that's what we're working with.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And then you can then start to bring in your other people from outside and move things forward, hopefully.
Yeah, no, brilliant.
That's
And
interesting.
actually,
That's really
you know,
interesting.
I do think, and we said this right from day one when we set up the planning committee, well, not planning working party as it was then, we need to work with our developers.
Yeah.
Because they can deliver a lot of things without ever really needing to get into the realms of your 106 or whatever. But if you are talking to them directly and you are saying, well, yeah, we understand why you're wanting to do that, but have you thought about doing this? You may well get somewhere with it. Because they are local people.
Well, a relationship with the developers actually cannot do us any harm.
It's not going to do you any harm, no. And I mean, it's like, you know, with the contentious ones, if you've got that working relationship with them, then you are likely to be able to have that influence to get them to think differently. Rather, you're never going to get everything you want, but at least you've got a way in.
So from that, we're going to go away and look at the town plan. We need to make sure that the rest of the committee are aware clearly that that's what we want to do by the next meeting, and that they look at it as well. So, yeah, I know. But I will send an email to each of them as well, just to make sure.
Is it worth also, because obviously this is going to be, or go into being a whole full council plan, is it worth, because obviously it's only the committee members that will get the minutes in relation to this, so is it worth, other than that, obviously they're on the drive, I know,
I think at this stage, Mark, the idea would be that the committee come up with how they see it, because it may not be that you actually want to move forward with developing a new town plan. You may just park it and say, well, this is not the way to go. If you're going to do it, the way it was done before, you had the bigger entity that was steering the whole thing. You had a steering group for the town plan, but the parish council had to adopt it.
Okay.
So it's not just the parish council creating it, the wider community creating it, but the parish council do have to adopt it.
Okay.
So, are you with us?
Yeah. I've just changed where it said the planning committee, I've changed that to PPES committee
Thank you.
on some of them. Is everybody happy with all the rest of the numbers?
I don't think there was anything else crying out. I mean, it doesn't really fit exactly what we're doing now, but it's an aspirational document. It's how we should be doing things rather than what we're actually doing.
The only other one was 13 in relation to TROs.
Yeah.
How does that work in relation? I'm presuming that's if third parties need to consult us for TROs. Is that right? Am I reading that right?
We don't really get instructions, do we, for any TROs?
It kind of happens around us, that one, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, it has happened in that we have been asked via parishioners for particular areas that they're concerned about, and that's what obviously with the speeding side that Peter is working on. He has had requests from parishioners, so I think it still fits with what happens.
Yeah.
So,
I think we're there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
proposal. Thank you.
Second.
I agree. Maybe don't know the weather out.
89.
Thank you. Emergency planning. To receive a report from Councillor Samantha Frapple and Mark Murphy following the training. Mr Murphy, over to you. This is your baby now.
It was an interesting training. It's something that we've never been signed up for in relation to, as Councillor Penny defined it in the last full council meeting, the back box. If you have a policy in place, a plan in place, and it's registered with Lincolnshire Emergency Services, then they will issue us, I believe it's a set of equipment for use in emergencies that's around between £300 to £400. So it's something that they will issue to us for just having the plan in place. The plan consists of the draft that was sent out to us, which has been partially populated, and it is, if you like, a generic overview of if, as emergencies happen, this is the first stay of what we put in place. As soon as we've got this plan in place, then that encompasses that we still have the use of all the emergency services even without it, but it means that that can then be managed by the head office at Lincoln, and then they will then pull in a lot earlier and a lot more effectively. And it also utilises use of volunteers, not only of our parish, but anyone else that, if it is a massive emergency, then we can pull in volunteers from different areas as well. They did say to us that once we get the plan written and in place, then they're more than happy to come out and deliver it to councillors, so we're all aware of how it all works and how it all will be disseminated. But it is really just putting into place the initial, if you like, the infrastructure of what's going to happen. Establishing a couple of safe places. If there was a flood in the local area and people need to get evacuated from their homes, then where would they go? What services are available to them? So that's been populated and been put onto the drive. Anything that is yellow is still requires populating. So, for instance, there's a long list of sort of like volunteers if they want to get involved, put their names and details on. And I think really it's just making sure that everyone's had a look at it and is okay with it, happy to go ahead with it. And then in relation to GDPR and the contact details especially, the main, I think there's 5 people that's listed down, so chair, vice chair, clerk, and then the emergency team leader and emergency vice team leader is there for them to contact directly. So there's 5 ports of call for them to contact straight off. And I think that's about the sum of where we currently are. It is a new version that's come out, which we got from the training that we went on. And other parish councils, it has really come to their aid. I know sort of like Mablethorpe is one that they've utilised it 3 or 4 times. So it's, you know, getting the feedback from them was really key as well.
It was quite amazing actually what they will do for us if we put this plan in place, down to even sending a media specialist to work with the newspapers and the reporters that would turn up to any particular, so that you wouldn't even have to
Emergency
face
disaster.
them. It very clearly thought out. We were gobsmacked actually, weren't we, at just how much they do for you, even down to having counsellors, not our type of counsellors, therapist counsellors at your rest place, so that if people were traumatised, there would be somebody there for them. It was very, very
And it's the things that you don't actually think about, you know, unless you're actually faced with it. So if you're evacuating somebody out and they've got 2 cats and a dog, what happens to the cats and the dog? We've got to have somewhere that is the facility to have pets there as well, and it's things like that that, you know, it just opens your eyes a bit and sort of realises, you know, what the parishioners' needs are if we had the event of an emergency. So work in progress. It's started. So over the next week, I would think if we can get it sort of finished off and revert it back to Lincoln, and then
Can I just ask if the committee are happy for me to approach certain people within the town, key people within the town, to show them more or less what this is and why we're doing it, and ask them to step forward as a volunteer, basically. Yeah. I'm just thinking there are a number of people key within the town that, even if it's just that they've got a 4 before, that's the sort of thing that they've put the thinking into it. And the what 3 words thing, know your what 3 words, and we've got all that. Mark's been very good at listing. He's very good on that computer. But that sort of thing, I'm thrilled with it. I was really excited by it actually. And the back box, so to speak, it was even wind up radios and things. So if you had no power, you could actually still communicate.
And there's also like an emergency phone that you just plug into any phone line, and it's an active phone, whether there's a line, you know, an active line there or not. So but no, it's really, really good.
So if you're happy for us to carry on moving forward with that.
Sounds good.
Do I need to propose and second?
No, it's the.
Because it is. Thank you. Right, so we need to discuss and resolve to agree the emergency plan. So where we're up to at the moment is we're agreeing to carry on with populating the plan and taking it forward.
Yeah, I think it needs to go to full council.
It will do.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
get signed off before we
Before we
look to
ring
submit.
them, send it to.
The only thing I would add to that is, do we need to, at this stage, speak to district, county to see what their overview is in relation to, you know, emergency plans in different parishes, so that we're not
Overlapping.
reinventing the wheel? And, you know, is that something we need to do at this point, or do we do that after we've got the plan initially written?
I would get the plan initially written, then that's going to go back to Lincoln anyhow.
Yeah.
I suspect that you'll find that at that point they will then say, well, this person, they will probably help you with that process more,
Yeah.
because the way that it was always explained to us previously was that ours is the initial response, and then once
They come in,
they
yeah.
come in anyhow.
Yeah.
So they've got their systems all set up.
Yeah.
We don't really need to know what their systems are, we just need to know that it's going to happen,
Yeah.
basically, don't we? So it would be, I would say that they will, once you've got your plan in place, that they will guide you through what would, if there were an issue, what would be the step-by-step that would happen, I would imagine.
The only other concern, not concern, but the only other thing that I would raise is, for instance, we do cover a great deal of area as a parish. So if there was an emergency, for instance, at Holwich Grove, at the minute we've got our safe spaces listed down as 2 places within town. Do we need to go out and also list out, so for instance, like the Methodist Chapel, for instance, at Grove?
So it's almost adding a page, isn't it?
Add a page for each ward,
Yeah.
I
so
would do.
at least we're then covered.
Yeah, because there is no sense in having a safe space in Holwich Town Centre if you've got an issue that's going
No.
on down at Holwich Grove,
Not at all.
and it may be that the route into Holwich is not going to happen. So
Yeah.
you need to think about the locality where you're talking about.
So in relation to that, what I'll do is I will look at the different wards and then liaise with the councillors of those wards to see where the ideal safe spaces could be.
And everything else would stay the same. You're saying volunteers and everything would
Yeah.
just move that way.
Yeah.
But
It may be that you can find some volunteers that are more based out in those
Yeah.
areas as well. Because say down the marsh, you're going to have people with tractors, you're going to have all that sort of
Absolutely.
thing. So you need key people in those communities as well, don't
Yeah.
you really? So that would be
So that-
liaising again
yeah,
with
so
it
if we
all.
just add a page for each
For each.
ward,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Not a problem.
Thank you. Can I have a proposer and a seconder for that, please, that we're going to, thank you.
Do you agree?
I do. I do.
You need to reorder the agenda. Put that
At the bottom. Right, so can I... Right, because we need to work on some leases, can I have a proposer and a seconder to reorder the number 90 to go into closed session, please?
Do you agree?
I do. So items for discussion at the next agenda, so we're going to say the town plan.
Yeah.
The car parking, to make sure that we've got the little bits of jobs done.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll have some costings for your EPCs and things, and the also the valuations, so we can agree who we're going to go with.
And the date,
And if you can put an update of the emergency planning, so we can get it done
Yeah.
before the following full council after that. And then obviously the regular speeding
yeah.
point that will be on.
Fantastic, so to confirm the date and venue, so it'll be here. I don't know what's that, 21st today, isn't it? So,
It'll be 4 weeks is the 21st.
Yeah, but you want it 2 weeks
Weeks,
after
really,
the 2 weeks after full council, because that's it
28th of March,
messes up.
which is 5 weeks.
well, that just gives us a little bit longer
Yeah.
for our thoughts on the town plan
Yeah.
and to work on the emergency plan. So actually that probably is a good
Yeah,
thing.
28th of March at 6 o'clock.
Thank you very much. Everybody okay if I close this meeting?
Yeah,